Let's talk about the actual cremation process itself, because most people have never been told what happens once the body is transported to the crematory, nor will they ever see it unless you're in the business. And so here's a brief illustration as to what happens once the body is transported to the crematory. So when the body comes in, the very first thing that has to happen is there has to be an ID tag. Everything is tracked throughout the entire process. From there, once that occurs, you've got the actual, what we call the cremation chamber itself. So that would represent the door. And of course, this here is heated up to somewhere between 1400 and 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, now, once the body goes into the cremation chamber at 14 to 800 degrees Fahrenheit, this process, and this is going to be a clock here, is typically 2 to 3 hours for the cremation to be finalized. When I say finalized, that means that this part of it's done, because once this happens, then there is, of course, a cooling period where the remains or the cremains have to be cooled. So these arrows just represent the temperature going down. So once the remains, so the cremains are cooled down, at that point in time, we go through all these surgical metals. So people like myself, I've got a 5-inch plate and 5 screws in my right ankle. One day when I'm cremated, they'll have to sift through and make sure that's all pulled out. So, you know, people that could have screws in their body, they can have some sort of metal ball in their body. All this here is removed. At that point in time, what we have now is a pile of the ashes, which are actually bone fragments, right? These are bone fragments right here, those jagged, edgy type things that we put together, and they have to go through what we call a cremulator or a processor. So I'm just going to put a C there. The remains here go through that cremulator or that processor, and of course, once that takes place, all of the cremains are then put into a box for the family with the ID information as well, okay? So it's all tracked along the way. With that, there'd be a certificate of cremation that would come with the box of cremains here, or the bone fragments. The average weight on all of this is typically we see anywhere from 3 to 9 pounds. If you're curious on how much, you know, a box of the cremains would weigh. And this entire process, on average, from the moment that we have the cremation authorization form completed, which is most important when the death occurs, we have to take care of the cremation authorization form with the family. We have to make sure we have all the information for the death certificate. All has to be completed before we can proceed. But once we can proceed, on average, 3 to 7 days from start up here to finish with this process entirely.